right, everyone. We're almost to noon Eastern. Can you give me a green check if you can hear me okay? All right, good. Seeing some green checks fill in there. Right, wanted to make sure I had recording on, so we're all set up there. So we'll go ahead and get started. Let me actually take us back to the beginning slide here. All right. Okay, so thank you for joining us for this session of the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series. The K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series is designed to help K-12 educators reimagine education with Blackboard teaching and learning solutions. The K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series harnesses the power of our K-12 community of academic leaders, teachers, and other experts to provide relevant, real-time, and on-demand and ongoing professional development opportunities for K-12 educators. I apologize, there hasn't been much background noise here, but I am in an airport, so there may be a little bit, just in my couple slides here. Of course, the noise starts right when the webinar starts, so I apologize for that. All right, so moving to the next slide. My name is Katie Gallagher, and I'm the Senior Product Marketing Manager for Blackboard's Teaching and Learning Solutions and Products for K-12. And I'll be serving as the moderator for the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series. Colleen Smith is not with us today, but thank you to Jenny Breister for joining us, and she'll be helping on the chat. We'll be serving as your moderators for the series this spring. And we're always open to new ideas for the series, so please let us know if you have a topic that you'd like to see presented or if you're interested in presenting for a future session. You can always email me at katie.gallagher@blackboard.com. Each webinar in this series is recorded. You can search for the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series playlist on the Blackboard TV YouTube channel or go to tinyurl.com/bitsk12. After this session, you'll receive the recording and the presentation slides in a PDF form in a few days. You'll also be receiving an invitation to participate in an online PLC designed to augment the series and create an avenue for ongoing collaboration and dialogue. So please be sure to accept the invitation and participate in the PLC. As you can see, we have many exciting PD sessions lined up this spring, so please join us again on Monday for the Network Teacher, The Power of Professional Learning, The Power of a Professional Learning Network with Don Lorsey, the Head of Professional Development from North Carolina's Virtual Public School. Go to bbb.blackboard.com/K12bits where you can register for a Monday session or any session within the series. If you haven't done so already, be sure to download the free BB K-12 Live app from the Apple App Store or Android. This app houses the best sessions from BB World last summer, as well as every session from this series is published within the app. It really truly provides on-demand, anytime, relevant professional development for you and your teachers. So we're very excited to welcome both Mark Carbone and Donna Miller-Fry today. They'll take us through Connected Learners Need Connected Leaders. This session will explore the importance of connected learners having connected leaders, strategies to become more connected, and ways to leverage this in an instructional setting. Mark Carbone is an educator with 33 years experience. He's currently the Chief Information Officer for the Waterloo Region District School Board. He also serves as the Ministry OSAPAC co-chair, project co-lead, and is president of Educational Computing Organization of Ontario. And this month, Mark was recognized by the Huffington Post in an article about connecting and collaborating with social media tools. As part of this article, they listed the top 100 CIOs in the space, and he made the list. So we'll post the link to the article in the chat, so be sure to check it out. Very exciting. And we're also very thrilled to have Donna Fry, who also has nearly 30 years experience in publicly funded schools in Ontario as a teacher, an administrative head, online instructor, alternative education teacher, vice principal, and principal. She currently serves as an education officer for the province of Ontario, and she's especially interested in how school and system leaders influence what happens at the level of the student desks. So welcome to both Mark and Donna. We're thrilled to have you today, and we're very excited for your presentation. Just a bit of housekeeping before I hand it over to you. Everyone, we want this to be a really interactive session. Don't be shy. Don't hesitate to raise your hand or type a question in the chat. Jenny and I will be watching for those. We'll answer questions in the chat, and we'll also feed them into both Mark and Donna as we go. You can also use your talk button to speak up and ask a question verbally, but we do ask for you to only select your talk button when you're speaking. We want to improve the audio quality of the recording for those who weren't able to join the session live. So with that, I'll hand that over to you, Donna and Mark, and thank you for joining us today.
Great. Well, thanks very much. It's certainly a pleasure to be here, and we have our presentation really divided up into two components, and Donna's going to kick things off today. So over to you, Donna.
Okay, thanks, Mark. I didn't expect such a great introduction already, but I wanted just to take a moment to frame the work that we're doing around connecting leaders in Ontario before I get started on the presentation. So we're here today as part of OSAPAC, which is on the Ontario Software Acquisition Program Advisory Committee to the Ministry, and Mark and I work on a committee in Ontario that helps to look at software products and make recommendations to the Ministry about software products, as well as working in the area of building capacity around using technology-enabled learning in the province. Our key project that we work on together is a MOOC, and you're familiar with the idea of a MOOC, but we have a little bit of a different slant on that MOOC. It's called a community instead of a course. So we call it the Ontario School and System Leaders Educational Technology Massive Open Online Community. And the idea behind that is we're trying to support school and system leaders in Ontario in becoming more connected, by at the same time respecting the fact that they're very busy people, and it's often hard to learn new things when you're already feeling like your day is already jam-packed. And so we're looking at very simple ways to try to engage school and system leaders in learning to become connected. So in that work that we're doing, we go out every day and talk about how important it is for our leaders to be connected. And, you know, we've had to kind of sit back and really think about why we believe that that is so important. What is it about being connected that's so valuable in today's society in terms of looking at the students and why it's important for their leaders to be connected leaders? How could we have leaders in our province see value in that whole idea of being connected so that they would take the time to learn how to do it? So we've come up with 9 different things. Now this is just our own thinking through the work that we've been doing over the past year, but we wanted to share that with you today as kind of a basis for the work that we're doing, and hopefully we can get some other ideas from you as well, because what we're really trying to do is to dig into the thinking around sort of the work that leaders do and help to encourage them to become connected so that we can enhance the work that they're doing. And we would love to hear your views on this as well as we go through. So I'm happy to take questions as we move forward. So here's why we think our students need to have connected leaders. So first of all, it's this idea around crowd-accelerated innovation. The idea that when you're living in a culture of lots of ideas, innovation is more likely to happen. If we can recognize as this tweet says, that everybody we meet knows something that we don't know, and we want to actively dig at that, then the chance that the work that we do is going to be more innovative is raised exponentially, because we know that we're going to encounter so many new ideas, and it helps to push our thinking forward. So if we're working in isolated situations, the chance that we're going to have innovative practice is certainly diminished, and we would love to see leaders more connected to help ensure that innovation is happening more frequently in our schools. The second thing is that we're always concerned about the idea of digital citizenship. And traditionally, we always think about, we need to teach kids digital citizenship. And if you've been engaged in this topic over the last year or so, you know that there's a real shift in thinking around the topic of digital citizenship. Rather than looking at it as something that needs to be taught, we're starting to realize that kids are immersed in their digital lives all the time. It's not really a subject, it's a way of being. We know that all of our students are going to be Googled for jobs. I mean, people are already being Googled for jobs. And so what are we doing as educators to make sure that our students are going to have a positive search when they're Googled for their position? How are we teaching our students digital leadership? If as leaders we're not connected, if as leaders we're not concerned about our own digital footprint, our own digital profile, then we're not modeling the kinds of behaviors that we want to see in our students. Our third concern is around the idea of literacy. Now, when we think about literacy, we think about our education leaders as being the experts in this field. We can't quite imagine an illiterate school leader. But as the world changes, so many new things exist in our digital world. If we're not there as educators, if we're not in those digital spaces and becoming really proficient in them, then we're actually becoming illiterate in the world that our children are in. We need to stay connected so that we are still the literacy leaders in that space. We have a couple of leaders in Ontario that are really driving the thinking around the importance of encouraging connectivity in our leaders as well as in our students and network learning. Mark and I have used these quotes in a lot of the work that we do around our Awesome Youth project. And I love the one that Catherine Montre shared, that when we think about how we use technology, we can combine that with pedagogical practices that will actually change the trajectory of children's lives. And if we think about the power of that and how we can leverage technology in the classroom, we have to have people in positions of power that understand what it is that children need in those digital spaces. As Dr. John Malloy says, if we're not considering the digital world that our students are in, our students are going to be disadvantaged in the future, and we can't accept that. We need to be educating them both in the physical world and in the digital world, and we can't do that if we're not proficient in the digital world. So when we think about our professional practice, over the years, and I've worked as a teacher throughout the last 30 years, throughout the last 3 decades, and there have been times when it's really seemed like there are lots of magic bullets being thrown at us. And we know now that teaching and learning is really complex, and there are no magic bullets out there that are going to solve anything. But there was a time when we felt there were so many different styles of practices being thrown at us all the time, and we were being told to do this and we were being told to do that, that there was a real mantra among teachers to just close your door and teach. We really believed that as teachers we understood what kids needed best, and that all of these, different ideas that were coming at us all the time were just, they were going to come and go. The best thing to do is close your door and teach the way that you know best. But now we know that the world is a place where all kinds of information on pedagogy is being shared, all kinds of learning about what's the best way to approach different teaching situations, different learner needs, is out there 24/7 that we can access. And you know, if you're a professional in today's professional educator today, if you're closing your door in teaching without paying attention to all of that vast knowledge that's available to us now, you know, we have to wonder about whether or not that is a true professional practice. I think we're getting to that point where not accessing all of that amazing knowledge that's out there is not in the best interest of the students that we're putting at the center of our work. This is one of my very favorite quotes. We often hear people say, the smartest person in the room is the room, unless someone in the room is a connected leader, and then it's the world. So it's wonderful when we work with our colleagues. It's very important in our schools that we're sharing our wonderings and we're sharing our practices and we have our open door policies so that we can go through and learn from each other. But if then all of us are connected as well, we can bring in the ideas from everyone else out there who's encountering the same kinds of problems of practice, and we can adapt some of the things that they've tried to be successful in the classrooms. So that access is just so critical. So one thing that's incredibly powerful as leaders is when we open up our own thinking and our own learning to be challenged by others. As leaders in schools and other systems, we like to think of ourselves as lead learners and that we're driving a lot of the professional learning that's going on in our schools and in our boards. Sometimes we're putting out a lot of information, we're leading learning, and you know, the people that are listening to us have the right to question whether we're right or not. It's very, very powerful if we are bloggers and we can put our information out so that it's actually being looked at, considered, commented on, critiqued by other educators all around the world. And if we're open that way in our own practice and in our own sharing of our learning, it means that those that we're working with in our roles are also able to see the kinds of comments that are being put up on our blog or being shared about the learning that we're doing. So as leaders, when we open up our practice to that kind of challenge, then we're saying, hey, you know, this is what I'm thinking at the time. This is my best thinking right now, but who else out there can challenge my thinking so that I can even be a better lead learner in my school or in the system that I'm working in? So it's very powerful when you can model that kind of open learning for the educators that are in your building and show that you're open to having your thinking challenged. You don't have the right way. You don't necessarily have the one thing that's going to work for everyone, but you're willing to share what you're thinking and have that thinking moved forward by others that are reading it. One of the trends that we're working on here in Ontario also is to really try to align our practice with our Ontario Leadership Framework. Now, when we choose to do that in a very open way, so in other words, when we take the blogging and the thinking that we're doing and we demonstrate how that's aligned with our Ontario Leadership Framework, it's a form of accountability that's open for everyone to see. So when we talk about accountability in education, we often think about things like test scores and showing that we're moving student learning forward. But this is another type of accountability. It shows that as a leader, you're very aware of the expectations for your district or for your region or for your province. And the work that you're doing, you're sharing openly on your blog. But while you're doing that as well, you're aligning it with the standards of practice that have been set out by your jurisdiction. And so it demonstrates to everyone not just the fact that you're working as a great leader in your school, but that you're actually aligning your practice with the expectations that have been set out for you. And it also helps a great deal if you ever happen to be going forward for an interview and you're asked about your practice in various areas of the leadership framework. You have lots of examples of the work that you've been doing already collected. So that modeling that very open practice, demonstrating how it aligns with the standards for your profession, is a way of showing the public the work that you're doing in a very open way. So one of the things through Awesome Move that Mark and I are really pushing is the idea of sharing and how critical it is to share. And I'm going to just share a couple of examples of that. I'm coming to you today from a very remote area in northwestern Ontario. And as a school leader, it costs an enormous amount of money to send any of the teachers in my building for professional learning, because much of it is about probably 1,000 miles away. And we use that number 1,000 all the time because it's about $1,000 to send a single teacher to get professional learning somewhere. So if, as an administrator, I'm making that decision to spend a great deal of money for one of my teachers to go to a professional learning session, then I want to make sure that everybody, especially the students, are benefiting from that opportunity. And we are looking for ways that if you have that opportunity to go and learn from someone, that you're sharing it back with everyone else in your school district. So sharing is a key component of the work that we do. I do want to say, though, that we've had to really consider the audience as we've been working to spread this message about the importance of being connected. And when we start to break down the practices of being a connected leader, we find that sharing is one of the ones that is on the path to being a connected learner. So I think when Mark and I started doing our work in connecting leaders, we were very concerned about, getting everyone connected and the importance of sharing. And I think we've learned that we have to sort of take this one step at a time and work on getting people on a path of becoming connected. And sometimes sharing is a little bit intimidating to start with. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't become a connected leader. It means that maybe we need to back up a little bit and not start with that aspect of being connected. So some of our work has sort of looked at how you can just tap into the information that's out there and really work on finding the value of what it is in being connected to start with. And then we've watched some of the leaders that we've been working with realize that, I can be part of this too. I can be part of this community and like to learn to share. But sometimes it's really important to just back up a little bit and take it one step at a time and take people down the path. It doesn't mean that we don't think that sharing is important. It's critically important, but it takes a little bit of time to get to be comfortable with social media so that you feel like sharing. And our students go to school every day, and if that's their only experience inside that building, I think in this day and age we're doing them a great disservice. We are very aware up here in sort of the isolated part of Ontario that our students need to have boundless education. They need to be able to learn from the entire world. We need to have our schools as hubs where students come in and can access the kind of learning that they need no matter where that is in the world. And I think that's a very challenging thing to attempt if you're not a connected leader. Connected leaders are aware of what's possible. Connected leaders are aware of what other educators are doing in terms of bringing the world to their schools, and they can suggest things to their teachers and they can suggest things to the student body. So being a connected leader makes you so much more able to bring the kind of education that students need in today's world. I'm just going to take a moment and go back over those 9 reasons that Mark and I have come up with. And like I said, this is strictly through the work that we've been doing over the past year in trying to connect leaders in Ontario. So being a connected leader helps to be a catalyst for innovation. It shows that you're a digital leader. It increases your own personal digital literacy. It shows that you find both physical and digital spaces important places for students to learn. It shows that you recognize that isolation at this point in such a connected world is not a great professional practice. It allows you to model that connected learning. It shows that you're openly aligning your practice with the standards of your profession. It encourages you to share your learning, and it helps you to make your school a place of boundless education. And so I wanted to share that our way of trying to get leaders on this path, we've tried a number of things through our MOOC, and one of the things that we did last year was to put together a series of 1 day at a time, 10 minutes a day, little strategies to help you become a more connected leader. And I wanted to invite you, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about becoming connected, to check out the website, awesomemook.wordpress.com, and on the right-hand side of the website, you'll find links to all of the 10-minute-a-day strategies to become a more connected leader. So I'd like to pass this on to Mark now, who's going to share a more specific example of some of the work that he's doing in his board.
Great, thanks very much, Donna. I think this is a natural place to sort of hand things over and take this idea of the importance of connecting and connected leadership, and I can share an example of something that happened, I think, in our board that's been a very powerful experience here. So I want to share with you just a little bit of a context. This project, the Futures Forum project, as we refer to it here in Waterloo, is something that's been ongoing now for, I would say, 5 or 6 years. Initially just in the conception stage, and then it's something that's really grown out of a whole experience in being connected. And so the context is, as a school board, and our particular setting here in Waterloo, about an hour away from Toronto, we have 120 schools. We serve approximately 63,000 students, and the context of this project was to think about the notion of disrupting teaching, trying to design something that was fundamentally different than past practice. We were looking at how to break down some barriers, move the idea of traditional into the innovative area. And so we actually started a consultation process, and this involved sitting at a table here at the board with a variety of stakeholders, having these discussions. We did reach out and have some touch points through some of our local vendors in the area, primarily through an organization called Communitech. And we also involved students and captured some student voice in this, just around the idea of where do we move education to, what is this so-called classroom of the future, what should learning look like. And what was really interesting from that perspective is no one group could really define that in a precise way. And I remember one of the conversations where we had all these players, including the students at a table, and we almost started to back map. And we asked the question, well, if you were putting out a job posting, what would be on there? And so then it was interesting to get some feedback from the vendors, and they started to describe, in some cases we need, abilities to be very familiar with digital tools and being able to collaborate and perhaps work in multiple time zones and all this kind of thing. And others needed people that were flexibilities, and others described communication skills. And so what came out of this whole conversation was we really needed to dig into a kind of format that allowed students to have very rich and deep experience in these areas. And so part of our go-forward strategy was to enroll 5 of us that worked here at our education center, including myself, into a program that was offered through Powerful Learning Practice at that time that really focused on online collaborative tools, developing community, and making the learning job embedded. And so we all went through a program where we had to do a lot of learning about, now I'm talking 6 years ago, so a lot of learning around the collaboration tools in that time period. Blogging, of course, was really getting a lot of traction, as was Twitter and so on. And we started to work our way through a self-learning experience that was very powerful. And in the end, the closing part of the year-long program was to do an action research project. And certainly our action research project is what has now turned into the Futures Forum project. What could we do to disrupt teaching, try to get at these things that the students and community vendors involved at the time identified as learning and experience priorities. So I want to take you now through a little bit of that journey with that context sort of setting the stage. So in terms of moving this whole agenda forward, we decided to design a project that really revolved around 4 core attributes. I'll just quickly cover those off now. Fundamentally, we wanted to start changing what one teacher could do. And so we started to look at the context of what were the barriers, what was the context. And so initially, right off the bat, we wanted to change the notion of, I'll call it the restrictions that revolved around being a single teacher that was delivering single courses. So we came up with a project that really started to shake things down by combining timetable time slots together. So in this diagram, we're really talking here semestered school, 75-minute periods. And so the initial part of our program was to have one teacher doing more than their single credit, and that we would give them a much larger time block than the traditional 75-minute teaching allocation that was used in many of our schools. We also wanted to break down this barrier of simply addressing curriculum requirements in a single course by really showing a much more holistic and I'll call it cross-curriculum approach. And so initially we combined in our curriculum 3 subject areas, English, civics, and careers. In terms of credit value, English was a full credit, and civics and careers were each a half a credit. And so one teacher was now working with one group of students. They were going to actually cover all of the curriculum expectations for these 3 different courses and combine it into one time slot. In some ways, this slide, I think, is the most powerful slide, because what we tried to do is establish a forum in which teachers would operate. And so things that started to transition into the conversation were what we've now called the 4 ANYs. Anytime, anywhere, anyone, and anything learning. And these became the drivers as we started to talk about what is this curriculum going to look like, how are we going to operate, what tools will we have access to, and so on. And so this was, I think, the 4 ANYs was a very powerful part of actually operationalizing some of our philosophical discussions and moving this into something that would get traction and be doable in the school setting. So there's a variety of things that came into play here, and I'll highlight the 4 areas that we really started to focus on. The first one was trying to value this notion in Ontario curriculum around students expressing their thinking. Initially, we had that sort of narrowed down to explicitly expressing their thinking in writing, although we now recognize that there's many more forms to do that. But primarily, we wanted to get teachers about thinking around writing in online spaces, writing in a real-world context, and really moving away from writing on paper and the whole idea of ongoing assessment was really the interaction on paper between a student and a teacher. And so we moved students into writing in online environments. At that time, we set up our own blogging server. We ran a set of WordPress, at the time multi-user, just to give people some options in terms of wanting to address a variety of comfort levels. And I know Donna referenced this in her comments around it's so important to have different entry points, and teachers were learning along with the students. And so that was a good way for us. Many different online platforms were used. We certainly didn't land on any one, but we did want to cover off those different comfort levels. In terms of creating content, there was a huge focus in this put on collaboration, where students really were taking an inquiry approach to the course, and they were responsible for collaboratively producing an online publication each month, and so that was an integral part of this. We also introduced this whole notion of a cross-school novel study. And so I'll tag into this that our whole launch point was having one teacher in 7 different schools with 7 different groups of students to start. And so right away this idea tagged into some of the organizing at the school, where we decided these half-day blocks would all happen in the morning, so it was easy for the students to interact with each other, or teachers to collaborate online using a variety of strategies. And what was really neat about this was the wonderful positive reaction from students talking about having some choice in what they were doing. So me as a student, I could choose to do any of the 7 novels being studied. I didn't have to do it with the teacher that was in my particular building. This was a chance for me to participate in a different mix of students with a different teacher and do it in an online collaborative approach. One of the other core elements was for teachers to explore appropriate ways to start using social media and tools and interactions with students. And so we were encouraging our teachers and students at that time to be using some tools such as Facebook, and looking at the power of a couple of aspects of Facebook. We looked at teacher sort of the fan page kind of idea, or Facebook web page, if you will, where they could post assignments, questions, and so on. That turned out to be very powerful, and I know I followed a lot of the teachers that were using that strategy, and was quite taken by how often students would post a comment or pose a question on those sites. I was quite interested in the wide variety of time, right from first thing in the morning until perhaps midnight or later, where they would jump on and help each other and collaborate. So that was very powerful. I know some of the teachers tried using Facebook groups, which also had a lot of success. Classes were using personal student Twitter accounts as well as class Twitter accounts as ways of engaging. And the interesting piece about that, which still lives on today in the current format of this, the teachers landed on this strategy where across the schools involved, they would select a TED Talk, and all of the 7 classes involved would watch the same TED Talk on Fridays, and the students would then share their learnings, they would share their questions, they would share comments with all of the students in the other schools through Twitter. And so this whole process became dubbed as TED Talk Fridays, and it's been a very powerful thing. And not only was it great for student learning, but this provided a real-world context to have students and teachers interacting using social media tools in safe ways, being transparent, and fundamentally this was a chance for them to role model for others that were in our learning community here. I do want to say before I move on here, the classes that were participating in this, we did not issue technology to the level of, say, one-to-one. Classrooms were provided with some technology, basically on about a 1-to-3 ratio. And at that time, we were just beginning to roll out our Wi-Fi network. And so they had early access to the Wi-Fi. So these were not technology-rich classrooms per se, but this was, again, looking at how to move things along. So when we look at sort of what made a difference for us, we did a number of things, and I think these were all important in hindsight. Number one, it was important for us to start bigger than smaller. And by that I mean so many pilot projects are done just with a single classroom or perhaps a small number of classes but all in the same school. And frankly, that has a lot of limitations. And when we made the decision to start this with one teacher in different schools, and we involved about half of our secondary schools in the first year, what we realized later was that had a profound impact. And really, the impact that we've learned and tried to hang on to that as we move forward today is that by having the teachers isolated, one per school, it forced them to collaborate. And then there was a natural reason for the teachers to use those same writing, sharing, collaborative tools that the students were using. And it really put a whole different context to professional learning, professional planning, and professional sharing, because you simply couldn't just walk down to the staff room or go across the hall and have a conversation with somebody. It really put the whole notion of teacher learning into a different context. The other thing that was important for us was students were not selected in any special way for this. They were randomized, so we had, really typical classes. These were not all of the best, strongest students in any one class. We really had a mix. And so I wanted to share with you a little bit around, so what did the numbers say? Well, if you sort of fast forward through this story, the next evolutions that happened were we started to allow schools to do this sort of in both semesters. And then we did morning and afternoon. And so over 3 or 4 years, there was sort of a scaling of how the feature form approach could be used in each of the schools. And really to grow that kind of in a more organic way, without really investing a lot more in terms of equipment or specialized classrooms and that kind of thing. And so in terms of what the numbers said, I'll start a little bit with surveys. We really have put a strong emphasis on gathering feedback through this process. And so we had parent surveys, student surveys, we gathered feedback from teachers. All as part of this, we gathered feedback from school administrators. So that was all very important. We did partner up with an independent company so that we would feel pretty comfortable in saying that there was really no bias in the results. And in 3 years of data analysis, there were some really striking things that happened, keeping in mind that the data represents a variety of different schools, different teachers, different student cohorts, and across 3 years. What our evaluation showed was that students were typically, number one, more engaged. They talked positively about this approach to teaching. They were spending more time outside of the traditional school day being involved and active in this particular course approach. And in terms of assessment, it was shown consistently that students were achieving 2 to 5% higher than they did in traditional class approaches. And so we felt pretty confident that we were onto something here and to keep that going. And so going forward, we continue to build on this, and there's been some great spin-offs and so on. And I'll talk about some of those in a moment. So in terms of what happened next and where we're going now, lots of things, lots of pluses, and some challenges too. So first of all, on the timetabling side, I think our group of secondary administrators did a great job of working together to make sure that when they were involved in this program, that they were able to timetable those half-day blocks and line it up so it was easy for the students and teachers to sort of cross-connect and collaborate synchronously when they needed to. And so that kind of support from that group was really important. We do have some challenges that go with that now too, and that is really on the other end. As you could imagine, perhaps a lot of people were quite interested to just simply watch and observe this process taking place. It spawned a lot of conversations within schools, and people wanted to drop in and see what was happening in the class and have conversations with those teachers that were leading their way through this process. And so there are some now things that school principals have to deal with in terms of how many teachers want to be involved in teaching in this sort of cross-curricular two-period concept, how many of those time blocks they can actually accommodate within a particular semester of school timetabling. Some of the principals are finding now they bump into some limits and they can't schedule all the requests. So on a positive, it's great to see the growth and the interest, but we do recognize now that there are some logistical choices to be dealt with there. As we continue to grow the program, there is an idea of keeping it fresh. And so what does that look like and what are the challenges? Well, one of the things that we recognized was really important is that first group of teachers, they were forced to collaborate through the very structure that was set up through this. And part of keeping it fresh is the notion of we have to be creative in terms of finding ways as new teachers come on board to allow them to go through that experience and development phase of participating in the Futures Forum project. My reference there on the slides about the binder problem is really the idea of we don't want delivering the Futures Forum program to necessarily become very cookie cutter. We want to keep an element of change and innovation in this. And really where we've landed is on the idea that involving groups of teachers in this requires some differentiation in their approach to staff development and how they learn. We really don't want this to become just a cookie cutter thing that is handed out and just copied. But the biggest benefit to changing professional practice, being able to spawn conversations and share and reflect, really come from this idea of keeping it fresh. So in terms of the next two bullets here, mixing it up and nurturing spin-offs, this has been really where our work has been for the last couple of years. And by mixing it up now, schools are actively exploring different combinations of courses. Does it always have to be English that's paired with civics and careers? And I know now quite a few of our schools have swapped out the English and they're using history in its place, and they're having very good success in that. I also know there are some schools that are looking at including science in the mix as well. And we'll just see where that takes us. But I think most importantly, we're fostering innovation. We're not saying it has to be English, because we're interested in looking at what we can do to change practice. And in terms of spin-offs, again, lots of interest in this approach, and so schools are having conversations around, can we apply this to, let's say, our group of grade 9s? Is there something we could do in a particular grade level, or what are the elements of this that are powerful and working well that I can simply do in my classroom and perhaps get myself started on a new teaching journey? So lots of conversations are happening there. In terms of our school board approach, we continue to scale up, looking at a variety of options for us to move forward. We're really trying to encourage teachers to jump in, determine an appropriate entry point, and look at ways of moving that forward for themselves. Waiting for the next slide to pop up here. So that brings us to sort of the end of the Futures Forum story, which I hope you found interesting to hear about an on-the-ground project that really sort of grew out of this idea of being connected and being innovative at the same time. And we'll just quickly share the last couple of slides here, and then we can have a few minutes for conversation and questions. I've had the privilege and honor to work with Donna on some great projects this year, and certainly we enjoyed preparing a TEDx talk that we've done for this whole idea of the importance of being a connected leader. And we've also done a whole series of interviews with Ontario educators talking about the importance of moving this into action in their schools, and we did submit that to the K-12 online conference. And we've included the Awesome Move blog along with our personal blogs. And I think...
Yeah, we can open.
It's back, so...
I was just going to say, go ahead and open for questions before we go to my closing slides.
Sure.
There have been a lot of great positive feedback in the chat, Mark. Not to interrupt, but yeah, this would be a great time for any questions. And everyone, you can type them in the chat, or you can use the talk button to speak up. We've got a nice, intimate group here, so don't be shy.
So I'll just pop in there on the question around the interviews being recorded in video, and yes, they are. We, Mark especially, put together a 20-minute compilation of the videos that we uploaded for the K-12 online conference this year. So I'll pop in the link to the K-12 online conference, and we've also got that posted on the Awesome MOOC blog with the link that's posted on the slide right now.
Are there other questions for Mark and Donna? I don't want to cut the Q&A portion short. I know there were several questions that were addressed during the session as we went. I'm not seeing anyone typing right now. I'm going to pick on, there we go. How about Brian, Brenda, or Jenny? Any questions? Okay, let's keep the chat open for questions. I'll go ahead and move to the closing slides. Maybe folks will type some questions as I'm moving through the closing slides here. But Mark and Donna, I can't thank you enough. This has been a great presentation, lots of great information. Did you have some closing comments before I move to my last slides, Mark?
Well, maybe just a plug if you're interested to join us at Awesome MOOC. We do run a variety of learning opportunities there, from collaborative blogging to Twitter chats to what we call our open mic sessions. Yes, thanks, Donna. We've got Dean Sharesky booked for February 10th. Is going to do a wonderful session for us, so we're looking forward to that. I think Donna and I really believe in sort of that whole mantra of relentless role modeling and really trying to help others become comfortable in this journey by getting them involved. So we certainly welcome any participation in the work that we're doing. Donna, did you want to add anything?
Absolutely. You know me, Mark. I never... I'll pop back in there. Sorry, you know me, Mark. I never miss an opportunity for talking with a microphone. I just wanted to say that part of the presentation today is the idea that we want to make sure that we are modeling the sharing that we think is so important. And this is definitely a project of passion for us, in the sense that it's the key belief that we have in education, that it's critical that we are connected learners, and that's our premise, that's what we believe, and that's what we're trying to promote. And we certainly open this up. It's called Ontario School and System Leaders, but we welcome everyone. It's an open forum for learning, because we recognize that everyone in the world has lots to share with us, and we have lots to learn from them. So certainly would love to have you join us in any format in social media through Awesome MOOC. Thanks so much for the opportunity to share it today.
Great. Thanks for sharing that information. I was going to ask the time zone, but it looks like you put it up there, Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. Okay, Tuesday's great. Thank you guys so much. All right, well, not closing off questions here. Let me just transition to the last couple housekeeping slides. And I wanted to thank everyone for participating and thank our presenters. So we'll do those slides, but don't hesitate if you have more questions to type them in the chat. Right, so again, just a reminder, this session and all the other sessions in the series will be fed to our BBK12 Live app, so be sure to add it to your phone or iPad if you haven't done so already. And finally, thank you for participating today. You guys are what really make the K-12 Blackboard Innovative Teaching Series, and thanks to Mark and Donna for their awesome presentation. Again, let us know if you're interested in presenting in the future, if you have ideas for topics you'd like to see in upcoming sessions. You can always reach out to me on Twitter at @Gallagher or by email, certainly. In a few days, you'll receive the recording from this session and a PDF of the slides. You'll also receive an invitation to participate in an online PLC designed to augment the series and create an avenue for ongoing collaboration and dialogue. So please accept this invitation and participate. And don't forget to join us on Monday at 3:30 Eastern Time for the Networked Teacher, The Power of the Professional Learning Network with Don Lorsey from NCVPS. So be sure to go to bb.blackboard.com/K12bits where you can register for Monday's session or any session within the series. So thanks everyone for joining today. Again, we'll watch the chat for another minute or so, but really appreciate everyone participating, and thank you again to Mark and Donna.
This call is no longer being recorded. The leader has disconnected.